everybody. Good evening, brothers, sisters, and friends, and thank you for joining us for the first VPSA chat of this second year of the biennium as we're getting into the start of the new academic year. Thank you for joining us. As August is the month of recruitment, we'll be speaking with some brothers who have experience at the chapter and district levels to share their perspective on both the ups and downs. Before we jump into the introductions of our guests, I would like to go over just a couple housekeeping rules to make sure that we understand how things are going to go for the evening. We are live streaming on Facebook, so please put any comments or questions that you have into the chat. The wonderful Mia Harvey is here to help guide your questions over to the meeting here, and we will get those answered. We're happy to have any and all thoughts and questions. We are also recording this tonight so that we will be able to share it in our brand new KKSI chapter resources, which we will talk about a little bit at the end. So you'll be able to access this chat later if you weren't able to be here live with us or to go back for reference. So without further ado, let's go ahead and meet our guests. I'm going to ask them to share their name, their chapter, whether they are active or alumni, and just a quick little thing you do for fun outside of Kappa Kappa Psi. First, we're going to start with Morganne.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Morganne, as she said. I'm an active at the New Kai chapter at Wilkes University. I served as a chapter VPM from 2022 to 2024. I currently serve as chapter president, and I also serve currently as the Northeast District Vice President of Membership. And outside of Kappa Kappa Psi, I'm also a pharmacy student, so a lot of academics still. But outside of that, like many of you, music is still my passion and helps me keep balance with my academics. So
amazing. Thank you and welcome. Thank you for joining us and welcome. Next, we're going to go to Noah.
Hello, my name is Noah. I'm an alumni of the New Gamma chapter at Robert Morris University. Outside of Kappa, this past year, I am a master's student in social work through University of Tennessee. And then for fun, when I have the time, I love to just either read or binge whatever movie or show I find.
Nice, thank you. And you served on the district council previously, right?
Oh, yes, sorry. I
That's
I
okay.
was NED VPM from 22 to 23, and then I was chapter VPM from 21 to 22.
Amazing. Thanks so much. And lastly, we're going to go to one of our wonderful and amazing CFRs, Ari.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Arupa, for the introduction and for all your hard work as VPSA. My name is Ari Wright. I am the 25th chapter field representative in the history of the program. It's weird that Mason isn't here to say he's 24th. Kind of sad. Anyways, I am a proud alum of the new chapter at the University of Michigan, Go Blue, where I served as our vice president of recruitment from 2020. Yes, that 2020 to 2022. I am very, very honored to have gotten 2 months down into this position. And the funny thing about that is I worked 2 jobs before I got this job as CFR. So now I'm kind of rediscovering what I do for fun outside of Kappa Kappa Psi. Right now that's translated into a full watch of The Simpsons. I am on season 29. It's starting to get good again, actually.
Yep.
And just traveling around and, I don't know, exploring. So that's what I'm up to.
And also kittens.
Yes, I do. I volunteered at Cat Shelter here in Stillwater. It's right across from national headquarters, and it's convenient.
If you get a chance to visit Stillwater, go to headquarters right down the street. There's a little kitten rescue. It's the cutest thing. So, little more motivation to go. All right. Well, thank you for all of those introductions. We're going to get right into our questions. We're just going to have a conversation where I prompt our guests with some questions about the recruitment process. We will go through as each one of them gives us their perspective and see what we can learn. So first question is, please share your favorite chapter recruitment event that you have either participated in or helped plan. And we are going to start with Morganne.
all right. So I was definitely between 2 different events that I couldn't really pick between. So the first one that we host every year with New Kai is a music student social. It's just a great way to get everyone together for the first time, starting the new semester, especially as a school without a music major. It allows everyone to kind of get to know each other, who's going to be in the ensembles, who you might have a similar major to, who you might be in a different club with. It gives us a great chance to come together and talk about Kappa Kappa Psi as kind of a kickoff before recruitment really starts. And then the second actual recruitment event I have, I really enjoyed hosting this last year. We did what we called, we tried to come up with a fun little title for it, so we call it Side-Eye and Pizza Pie. We supplied pizza for the night, gave everyone a nice dinner. And then we provided all the supplies for people to tie-dye. We had like shirts and socks and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of a good, fun brotherhood event that everyone was kind of just welcome to come and enjoy for the night.
That's great. That sounds like some really fun times. All right, next we're going to go to Noah.
Yeah, so I think my favorite event that I've probably either helped or participated in from New Gamma has been our s'mores recruitment event. It's always our first event after the semester starts because we do an informational during band camp. But that's like the first one. It's usually when it starts to get kind of cool outside. So there's a nice fire pit area on campus that we rent out, and we spend like 2 hours just roasting s'mores, talking about Kappa, talking about band, and it's just like a very like casual, no pressure event for P&Ms to come into, and kind of meet the brothers, see what it's all about without there being any real like obligation to like know what Kappa is or have any expectations. It's a really good introduction, and every year I've gone, I've always been there probably like an hour or two after, just talking in a little circle of whatever brothers or band members have lingered, and it's just turned into really good memories.
That's great. Yeah, any kind of like potlucky cookout atmosphere is usually a pretty good time. So I'm glad that went well for y'all. All right, next up, we'll go to Ari.
Okay, so this one requires a little bit of explanation, but my favorite event that I ever helped plan, my big thing when I was VPR is that everything has to be a pun. So it was called KK Sent with Love. I was looking through some old things, and the new chapter still puts puns on all the recruitment events to this day, which makes it great. But so yeah, KK Sent with Love. It's when you have to recruit in the year of our Lord 2020, you have to overcome quite a few barriers. And so I tried to boil my thoughts down to like, what are the things in recruitment that make people want to join you? And one of those things is making people feel special and included and, having connection. I feel like a lot of times you can go and get like physical items, you make like an arts and crafts or something of the like. So I tried to recreate that feeling as best as possible by basically door dashing gift bags to people. We got together, me and the people in my bubble, and we bought like a bunch of like little Debbies and candy and stuff, made sure it was all dietary inclusive and allergy inclusive and things like that. Put them in these little bags that we had decorated with stuff. And then we dropped them off at people's dorms. And it was just like a nice way to like show people we cared and we were there. And I think I like it so much because it was just such a unique thing that we got to do, and it went really well. And it was honestly just a lot of fun. And during the pandemic, I think that means a lot to have a lot of fun and to make people feel special and included.
Absolutely. We talk about, active recruitment being the best way to approach your recruitment process. And certainly, whether it's, because people have to be staying at home, or even now when we can be a bit more around each other, seeking people out to talk to them, to start a conversation with them about Kappa Kappa Psi or acknowledge them individually is a great way to sort of add to your recruitment process, because someone might not ordinarily respond to an all call, but if they get a little tap on the shoulder, they might be a little bit more willing to be like, hey, this is a thing that I could do. So the big events are great, but individual contact is a great way to go as well, and certainly something we learned in 2020. Thank you very much for that. Those all sound like great ideas, and I hope chapters will take some inspiration. So our next question is, please share your favorite chapter recruitment event that you've seen another chapter host. Maybe it made you a little bit jealous or decided to perhaps take that idea for your own. This time we'll start with Noah.
So, I'm a little bit separated from active, so I had to really brainstorm for this one. So I looked through like some Instagram pages, and so I found myself on New Zeta because I love New Zeta. Shout out to them. Up in Edinburgh. Um, and something that they did was like chalk drawing, which I think is really cool. I think it's, very like not a lot of supplies is needed other than the chalk, and then you really just have like the world to kind of like as your canvas there. So I think creativity, I think that allows a lot of brothers to kind of show like a different side of like art. Because sorry, I lost my train of thought. To show like their appreciation for other kind of art, as well as it just being very fun, and you can really take like that in different ways as well, while also trying to incorporate Kappa into it. So that was one I really liked. I think it was just very creative, and it really doesn't take a lot of resources either.
That's great. Sounds fun. All right, next we'll go to Ari.
Okay, so I promise I prepared this answer ahead of time. I'm not just borrowing from what Morgan already said. The tie-dye idea was something that I really always wanted to do. It's just I don't know how to tie-dye, so I was like, I'm scared of that. I don't want to touch it. But the thing about college students, they love free stuff and they love food. Those are the two golden rules. If you can accomplish giving them a free item or food, there is a higher likelihood they will attend. And I think that an event where you can like just do something like kind of chill and creative and like you get to talk while you're doing it, express yourself as an artist, and you come away with the free thing that you're gonna have like forever and sew it into a t-shirt blanket or something someday. I just think that that's like a very easy way to get college students to show up to an event. And also it's just a lot of fun. So
Absolutely. Sounds great. And Morgan.
All right, so I've seen a lot of chapters do this. And I know like for us now, we've kind of incorporated it into our like when we do lessons and the rest of the Road to Wisdom, but a lot of chapters do speed dating. And I think that's, besides doing a social and people, individually talking to each other and like setting something up like that and having everyone be able to interact with each other. I know that works coming from a small chapter. If you have a huge chapter, might not work as well because you're having a lot of people to talk to. But it was kind of a great way to get everyone to go through and talk to everyone. And I've definitely seen like photos of it online. And like I was also looking at people's Instagrams too all the time to just kind of get new ideas. And it just always looks like everyone's just having a blast getting to meet new people.
Yeah. Social situations can be a little bit intimidating. And so when there's that structure in place where now you're talking to this person, then you'll talk to that person, and you go on down the line, it can just sort of help with that barrier a little bit and help everybody be a little bit more comfortable. So certainly a good way to go. All right, we're going to move on to our next question. Has there been an event that you experienced that didn't go so well that perhaps chapters should avoid, either you as a membership candidate or on the other side planning an event? This time we're going to start with Ari.
So the way that you phrased that question, I have two distinct answers. I think in terms of events that I've actually hosted, don't host an event that has make sure that you're able to translate the meaning of the event, whether or not weather affects. Basically what I'm trying to say is we put on an event called KK Sports. That's a name that's existed for a very long time in the new canon. And the way that I was going to do it, I was so proud of myself because we got these resources from the nearby library, and we had like big lawn checkers and chess and stuff and all the fun like board games. So it wasn't going to be too super physical. It was going to be chill and nice. But then it rained that day.
Oh
And
no.
you can't really plan for that sort of stuff. And we had not, our backup plan, the backup plan that we had come up with was to go to the nearby intramural sports building and just play some stuff there. And I think that went fine and good. I think that less people attended because number one, the weather and sports do not mix. And number two, it just wasn't as chill as some people maybe wanted it to be. you just have to be really mindful with events like that of their timing and of their intention. But like, I mean, we only had a few people attend, but the people that were there had a really great time. So it's one of the ways that I learned that like, it's not always about the quantity of people you bring in, but it's about the people more so that you like are able to connect with, because the stronger connections you get, the more likely they are to apply and become a brother.
Absolutely. Weather is always a consideration if you're planning anything outside, especially during this time of the year. Tends to be rainier in some places. So having a plan B like you guys did is definitely a good thing. And make sure the plan B is feasible, because the last thing you need is to show up to the intramural building and they're like, no, we have some giant tournament. You can't be in here right now, you know? So if you make a plan B, make sure that the plan B is also feasible so you don't end up stuck. But yep, definitely one of the things that can happen. Next, we're going to go to Morgan.
All right, so I don't necessarily have any specific events that I don't suggest. But kind of like Ari's answer, I really suggest having a game plan before going into an event, or even just walking through the other event with like your other brothers before hosting it. Just to see if there's something you missed. Because last year we tried something new. We tend to recruit a lot of first year students, so we did a little scavenger hunt to kind of know your way around our like music building, since it's not a common place that people have classes. And it went okay. Definitely could have went better. But I feel like had we went and physically walked through the event ourselves before doing it, we just could have like prevented a couple errors and just seen things a little differently. I just felt like I missed a lot, and we're trying it again this year to see what we could improve on. But just getting different outside perspectives on what you can do really helps.
Certainly. And it's one of those things when you're event planning that someone's like, oh, I got it. It'll be fine. Everybody else is like, oh, yeah, it'll be fine. And then something actually happens when you get there and you're like, we should have just done a couple of extra steps here to make sure that it would actually be fine. So certainly walking through a space, being there with a couple of other people, thinking about the process of it all. A lot of the times it comes down to like transitions of things, like going from one thing to another. How smoothly is that going to work, instead of just creating a bullet point outline and going with it? So just thinking about things just a little bit more specifically. I'm the kind of person that ends up thinking about the worst case scenario for something that I'm planning. So I'm like, what if weather happens? What if someone needs help? Like all of those things, just so that I've at least thought through what that might be like. And I'm not surprised the day of. So certainly doing just like a couple of extra steps to make sure that everything you want to do is going to work the way that you want it to. So thank you very much for that suggestion. That's very helpful. And Noah.
So, in my experience as chapter like VPM, something I did was an informational, and it was like an hour-long one, kind of like a bit more in depth than, just a quick like 10-minute one we would do at band camp. But I think from there, what I learned is just really learning how to be like mindful of people's like time as well as their attention at the end of like a day, especially because a lot of these recruitment events are going on during the week pretty late at night, to try to account for class schedules, and people have probably been through like labs, lectures, jobs, what have you. So I think being very making sure that if you do have to get more into like those recruitment events that are kind of a bit more dry with information, what about Kappa or recruitment or in general, I think being able to pair that with like a fun event, and then also being able to kind of streamline the information as well, of making sure you're concise, you're not getting long-winded. um I think that was something I really ran into, and I think even towards the end of like the event I found myself getting nervous because I could see people checking out,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh boy, I'm like, I should have just like written a script out for myself, um and just really plan this so I wouldn't have, so like we could have all been out at a decent time, as well as made sure that this event was kind of interactive and engaging the entire way through.
Certainly. I think anything where you're just trying to share information, the more that you can get your guests involved in that information, the better it's going to be, so that you're not the only one speaking. And that also takes the pressure off of you so that you don't feel like you have to come up with some big long script and know everything that you have to say. So approaching things as a conversation, making information interactive, and making sure that the people who are there attending feel like there's a purpose for them to be there. So definitely some good advice. Okay, so now we're going to speak a little bit more deeply about the planning for a membership process. The next question I have for you all is, please talk through the planning for your chapter's membership process. What kinds of chapter-wide discussions do you have before recruitment? How do you set goals for yourselves? How do you think about your active recruitment style as you go into the process? Any suggestions about before things even start, how do you think about it? And we're going to start with Morgan.
So besides like planning the calendar, we try to have some discussions about, what's our goal for how many membership candidates we're striving to initiate that year? What kind of qualities are we looking for in those membership candidates throughout the process? Are they showing up to all the events that they can? You have to be mindful of, when people are free, but you also want to look at, hey, we're hosting different types of recruitment events. Did they show up to the fun social ones, but not the service ones? And this also kind of goes along with the calendar too and what I just mentioned, but what types of recruitment events that we want to have, just to be sure that we're covering everything from musicianship and brotherhood, leadership and service. And within those, we want to be able to give our potential membership candidates an honest look into what we do and who we are. So just making sure that we're being really authentic through the recruitment process to them. We're not trying to put on like a face for recruitment and then being a whole different chapter when it comes down to the membership process. And just kind of, looking at what are our goals for the year just in general, and just those kinds of questions are usually what we talk about.
That's great. Thanks so much. Next, we'll go to Noah.
Yeah, so I think, I would echo a lot of what Morgan said, as well as just kind of having a discussion with the chapter of how we talk about like Kappa Kappa Psi to like new members, because a lot of the time we're talking to freshmen who are just getting into college, and there's usually that stigma around it's a fraternity. Like, we're in a fraternity in name, but we're not like a social fraternity. We're not usually part of Greek life or anything like that. And so honorary service fraternities are very different from social fraternities. So I think being able to talk about it in that way. So I know like a lot of what we do is that we sort of like avoid wearing letters during band camp unless like on our assigned days when we have informationals. But I think as well, what we do is that throughout the like band camp and everything, we really kind of separate of like what the band helped out with and what Kappa kind of sponsored with, whether that was like service, whether that was like putting out like food, drinks, what have you. Um, and I think, being able to talk about what responsibilities the chapter has to help out the band and being able to have that be translated to P&Ms and showing them that they can be involved in this too, and that they don't have to be a brother to be involved in it either. They can help out before the process even starts or before they even know about the process. And I think also just kind of making sure to be intentional of like how often we talk about Kappa as well, because it can be a lot to hear from 20 different brothers, 10 different brothers about Kappa, and it's just like, what is this Kappa thing? Why am I hearing so much about it? And I already feel like I'm getting overloaded with information before I've made a decision. So I think just being intentional of how we promote Kappa, how much we talk about it, and kind of walking the talk more so than talking.
Absolutely. That's great. Thanks so much. Lastly, Ari.
So I think a lot of great points have been brought up that I don't want to copy. A lot of really great things brought up here. Just to add a few things to this conversation. Something that I did when I was VPR was I would look back on the previous year and how it went. Obviously, my first year, that was a little challenging because it was like, how much did I perceive any of this? But taking what I knew from people around me, and taking their experiences into account to try to make things better. People were confused. We operate very jointly with our Kappa Beta Sigma chapter. That's the Lambda chapter at the University of Michigan. And so we have a lot of conversations about like which is which and how is it different. And for the longest time, people were like, yeah, Tau Beta Sigma is leadership through service and Kappa Kappa Psi is service through leadership. And that's really confusing and nobody got it. So like one of the first things I did when I got in as VPR, I was like, let's get rid of that, please. Let's get rid of that. Things like that. Just making sure that you take feedback and things that you hear from people and use that advice to make things better consistently. And also something that nobody ever considers when they're planning event times. And I didn't think about this at all. And I felt like a big idiot when I didn't. You're comparing the schedule and like scheduling things based off of like band rehearsal and band events and things like that. Are you thinking about the dining hall schedules? Because if you don't think about the dining hall schedules, students are going to want to go eat rather than go to your event. You have to be thinking about that. Because sometimes there are some days where they close early and it's like, should we move this event earlier? You probably should, or offer dinner, because college students want to eat. And that is important and good. So
Absolutely. So making sure that you're either working with your Tau Beta Sigma chapter, if you have that on campus, and or considering other musical organizations that might be doing recruitment around the same time that you are, and at least making sure you're kind of all on the same page and not getting in each other's way too much. And then when we talked about thinking through a couple of extra steps when you're planning an event, thinking about what other things are going on campus and what things your fellow students might be prioritizing at that day or time. So trying to keep that all in mind to make sure you're not bumping into too many things. As a quick follow-up, I'm interested to know if any of you have experience sort of speaking with your sponsor or director of bands about recruitment before it happens. Anyone feel free to chime in.
So yeah, every summer they would have us schedule a meeting with our sponsor and our director of bands to just kind of talk through the events and everything. I think that it is really good and important to do. I'm very lucky in that the DOB and the sponsor for the Michigan Marching Bands chapter had been brothers, and were very familiar with kind of the culture. So they did have a lot of good advice to give at times, a lot of good feedback and suggestions, things that we might have missed, things that are just good to have. And it's also good to let them know what your schedules are, because then you can invite them to recruitment events. And that just kind of shows like a positive representation of your chapter. My sophomore year, I was not VPR. We had a football watch party and our associate director showed up and we were all like, what's up? It was great. You know, it's great to show prospective members that we have that positive relationship with the staff and they trust us and we trust them. So
that's great. Any other thoughts on that anyone has? Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah, so in my time in the chapter, our sponsor in DUB was actually she fulfilled, well, I had two sponsors and directors at one point throughout my career, throughout my college career. But anyway, they were always like the same person, the sponsor in DOB. So they were very involved with, you know, all things band, all things Kappa. So it made scheduling I feel like it helped a lot, just being able to kind of be able to look at these two calendars and be like, here's what's going on. Here's how we can make sure that like we're not overloading like one day or something like that. Or sometimes, honestly, the sponsor would let us use some like rehearsal time for like that. So I think, you know, having like a really good relationship with like your sponsor DOB is really important and can be really helpful. And I think it also and they can help you out too, especially if they're very passionate about Kappa. So I think that also really helps as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, they are able to do their own reaching out for suggesting people to enter the membership process. So don't be afraid to ask them to make asks if you would like them to, because like I said, people will respond to those sort of specific asks and taps on their shoulder rather than sort of an all call. In general, the first thing that the chapter should be doing is submitting their membership calendar to be approved before they do anything, any recruitment events, any of the Road to Wisdom lessons, anything. They should be submitting the membership calendar first. But before they do that, the sponsor and director of bands should have a look to make sure it all looks okay. And the VPM can use that as an opportunity to just say, hey, here's what we're thinking. Let us know if you have other thoughts or suggestions, and or invite them to those things. So they should at least be having an eye on your calendar before you're doing things, and you can take that opportunity to give those invitations and ask for thoughts. So thanks for entertaining that question. It just sort of popped up as we were talking. All right, we'll move on to the next one. How does your chapter ensure it's not just a select few brothers doing the recruitment or talking to interested members? Everybody has a different personality. Sometimes you feel like there are those who can be real good flag bearers for your organization, but it shouldn't really be on one or two or a small group of people to do all of that. So how do you ensure that sort of everyone is involved? And we'll start with Ari.
Okay, so a big thing that I learned during my time as VPR was the power of delegation. And I feel like that's a big word that we all use a lot, but we don't really get what it means. So we don't really use it as much as we should. But I got lucky because our framework for recruitment events exactly matched the number of people in my committee for our recruitment committee. There were 5 events that we did that fall, and there were 5 of us. So I was like, great, everybody gets an event. When we did that, I had them come together all of us come together in meetings the summer before to kind of propose ideas, talk about how they reflected the pillars, things like that, making sure they were good ideas, and they were all very good ideas. So basically each person in the committee would have a week that they were on, like planning, executing, taking care of setup and everything. So a great example of this event was KK Cider. This was our, this is kind of like Noah's s'mores event. This was like our everybody chills and eats donuts and cider, and it's great and it works every time. I had a brother, her name was Mel, in charge of that. And I was like, here's your budget. Here's my ideas. It was the week of Halloween. So I was like, you could make it Halloween party themed and that would be really cool. And she was like, bet. And so the week of, she got everything set up, booked the room, took care of the posters, the advertising, and had a few people from her house help to set it up, and it went great. And normally that's an event that would mean a lot of logistical setup for me, a lot of purchasing donuts and picking up donuts on top of all 70,000 things that I'd have to do as VPR. But she completely took the weight off my shoulders, took pride in the setup of the event, and I could tell that she had a lot of fun. Everybody had a lot of fun. It was our best attended event of the year. So when you're able to delegate things like that, it gives people a sense of pride in what they do, which makes them more able to connect with people. And it gives you, as the person in charge of recruitment, or if you are the person in charge of recruitment, it gives you a lot less stress, which you will need.
Certainly. Delegation can be a little bit difficult sometimes when you feel like I need to make sure everything goes okay. But remember, we're all in this together. Everybody is all working towards the same goal. So everybody wants to help, and you should utilize that help. Next, we'll go to Morgan.
All right. So specifically like last year, before recruitment even started, I asked all my chapter brothers to kind of sign up at what recruitment events they could be at. Now, I asked everyone to be at least one event because we had around 4 events. But since we're a pretty small chapter, I had pretty much almost everyone show up to every event. So that was really great. But this was kind of a good way of making sure that everyone was present during the recruitment process, and we didn't have, just the same 5 people at the same events and maybe some other people not really making an appearance. We also, of course, had some discussions as a chapter, just making sure, like, hey, everyone needs to, branch out and talk to everybody. Kind of how I talked about that recruitment event earlier with speed dating. That was kind of like my thought process going into this is, hey, we're not maybe doing something formal sit down like this, but just, make sure you're mingling. We are the people who are recruiting and, they're coming in, they're very nervous. We want to make sure they feel welcomed. And then also kind of my thought process on this too is through our COVID years, when I was being inducted, not all of our chapter brothers were present at the recruitment events or even lessons. And it was always confusing to me as a membership candidate when I showed up to like a lesson or a degree. And I saw people I had never seen before there. And I was kind of like, hey, I'm so and so. Who are you?
Yep.
So I really wanted to make sure as VPM that our interested members were getting introduced to everyone before getting to that point, beginning the lessons, the road to wisdom, all of that.
Yeah, that's great. Certainly anything you remember about your process that felt a little weird is something that you can suggest and fix for those that come after you. So that's a great note to make for yourself. Just what was it that I felt? How was I feeling? And how can I help with those feelings now that I'm in the chapter and I'm the one doing the recruiting? So considering where your potential membership candidates kind of are in that situation. And then lastly, Noah.
So there is this really cool resource that the chapter VPN before me, my big came up with, which is called like the Ambition Scout form. And so we send this out to all the brothers before band camp, and it's a Google form that is open up until bid cards go out for us. And what is that we encourage all brothers to fill it out whenever they see a band member or a P&M doing something that really stands out to them. So it's structured around the pillars as well as the fraternal code of conduct. And so it would say like band member's name, it says what pillar or value they exhibited, and then what did they do. So we got a lot that said like they so and so helped load the truck, so and so stayed after practice. So and so supported like this band member during like a stressful time. And it was a really great. We utilized it during COVID when all of our sections were separated and we couldn't really talk to anybody outside of that. So it was a great way for brothers to kind of see what other band members are doing who they don't have as much opportunity to like interact with, whether it's in band or in a social setting. And then it just kind of persisted throughout these years of being a really good tool of brothers encouraging brothers to stay really vigilant and like recruiting passively. And it's not always just like talking to like P&Ms, but it's really just kind of observing like their actions outside of like band or outside of Kappa or in those spaces as well that you think would really that you think like whatever they did would translate really well into being a brother.
That's great. I think the important part of this question is just to make sure that everyone has a say and everybody participates as much as they can so that they can make an informed decision. So it's not about trying to make everyone do extra work or anything like that, but there is going to come a point where you have to decide who's going to be in the process. And the only way for people to make a good decision is if they've been participating. So encouraging folks to be able to do their homework through the recruitment process so that they can make a well-informed decision about who enters your process. Which takes us into our next question, which is, please discuss attributes to look for in a potential membership candidate. And we will start with Noah.
Yeah, so I think something that our chapter really like talks about and promotes is kind of like not trying to go for like one specific kind of person. So there's always like some like band members who are just like very like gung-ho and just happy to be there and just very high spirited, but then you also have like other band members who may not be as outgoing but they're still really invested all the same. And I think a lot of like credit should be given to like all personalities and just different ways that people show their investment in the organization, in the band. So with that being said, I think, being able to see the dedication, whether it's helping like load the truck, whether it's cleaning instruments, or even seeing what they do within their section too, because that can be really hard to kind of like think about too. Like if you're over here in brass, but you're hearing all about this really great P&M and the woodwinds, but you're not really seeing it because you don't have the chance to interact with them. So I think being open-minded to that. But I think just that general dedication, I think a really good connection with like band members and brothers alike, making sure they get along with everyone. Um, and I think also just kind of being able to see, I think also just being able to recognize like how they conduct themselves in other settings as well, whether they're in other clubs or in class, because that also speaks a lot to their character as well. So I think being able to view the person holistically is really important, and that'll help you decide if they're like a good fit for your chapter and a good fit for like brotherhood as well.
Yep, that's great. I think the saying goes, you're always wearing your letters. And so when you're looking for a potential membership candidate, someone who could be a brother in the future, how they sort of approach all areas of their life can be a good indication for you. Next, we'll go to Ari.
All right, yeah, so I'm going to take a page from immediate past president Jessica Lee. She has this quote that goes, "The best friends do not always make the best brothers." It's kind of a hard thing to accept sometimes because there are these people that you care about in your life that you really want to be involved, but it's not for everybody. And you can't force that. If somebody feels like their talents are best used elsewhere, if you try to kind of shove them into this hole, try to force them into this thing that they might not be as interested in, they're not going to engage as much. And you're also going to find that, like, I don't know, Arupa made a point earlier that was like, is this person only showing up to brotherhood events? If they're only here for the good times and they're not here to do the work, that's something you have to keep in consideration, whether or not they are your friend. Just, I hate to be like the killjoy here, but it's something that's so important. And it's a little bit of a heartbreaker, but you will thank yourself when you add a brother to your chapter that actually does the work, as opposed to somebody who you really like but really does nothing. So then you have to take a lot of time to have a really hard conversation with them. You will thank me later.
It's kind of the good guy problem. Oh, he's a good guy, we'll give him a bid. And it's like, he might be a good guy, but is that what the chapter needs? So it's certainly important to keep that perspective. And lastly, Morganne.
All right, so I feel like sometimes, in our recruitment process, we, at my college, because we don't have, marching band, we don't have band camp, sometimes we lack that time to kind of see that person in action or what they're doing. So we really ask them a lot of objective questions, which is hard sometimes because it feels like a questionnaire for them, but we really try to get a glimpse of, like I said, we recruit a lot of like first year students of, what their life in high school was like. So whether it be in music, whether they were a section leader or a drum major, again, as a first year student, sometimes you don't have that time in college to build up your resume of things that you've been able to do in college. So you have to kind of look back to the high school days. But, we also ask, what else they were involved in. I feel like a lot of people from our chapter were involved in like other volunteer organizations or volunteered throughout high school or through college. So, we like was mentioned, we look to see kind of like what's your musical involvement, because, we obviously want to retain members who are going to be, proud band members throughout their college career, but also what kind of other experience they have just being a leader and really showing service, since that's, one of the really big pillars that we try to push. And, we always try to look for people who are, being friendly and kind and enthusiastic, when they're not even being, what I want to say, like watched, they're showing it all the time. And we also try to keep in mind, like, anyone can show these qualities, and whether it be someone who's, really loud and proud about it, or they're more on the reserve side, We try to just look for that too. And of course, like was mentioned, we try to look and see how they are showing those pillars without, actually being a brother and being aware of those things. So if they're participating in service or, showing leadership, and brotherhood too.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you all for those answers. I think the thing to consider and to keep in mind for chapters is that the road to wisdom is not a weed out process. There aren't tests and quizzes where you can like cut people. There's no like halfway through, how are they doing? How are they developing? Maybe we can just cut them now and they can come back next semester. That's not really how our process works. And so that means that the recruitment process becomes extremely important, right? Because you want to give bids to brothers who could be good brothers tomorrow. They could do the work and participate and bring value to your chapter tomorrow. The road to wisdom is about teaching them about Kappa Kappa Psi, about your chapter and how it does things, about the national organization, about the district organization, giving them all of that context for the organization, taking them through the rituals. It is not about developing them as a person or seeing how they progress. And maybe they'll be a good brother by the end of this process. We're looking for folks who can contribute sort of as soon as they are initiated. And even before, if you have membership candidates, participate in service and the other pillars during the process. So this part of your recruitment process, like thinking about the attributes that you're looking for, is extremely important and should be part of that discussion that you have prior to starting your process to make sure that the chapter is kind of all on the same page about the kind of folks that we're looking for that will continue to move your chapter in the right direction as a group. And you really should consider that if you feel like you're having good recruitment classes, and so you feel like your recruitment process is doing well and there's not much for you to think about, but you're having retention problems, like people come in and they become active and they start to do the work and then they leave in a semester or in a year, then perhaps there is some rethinking that you need to do about your membership recruitment. So it may be that you're bringing in 8 or 10 brothers every process and you feel like your numbers are really good. But if those folks aren't staying around, then there is a further discussion that you should be having about these attributes that you're looking for. So thank you all for that. The next question we touched on a little bit earlier. I jumped the gun just a little bit because it was kind of a flow in the conversation, but it is about incorporating sponsors and directors of bands in your recruitment process. Are there any suggestions that you would make for chapters that maybe don't incorporate that into their recruitment process that you could let people know about at this time? And we'll start with Ari.
So a lot of my response to that is what I said earlier, but just to reiterate, like, it's always important to bring them in to approve your event slate just before you submit it formally, just as a catch. A lot of times you might get lucky and your DOB and sponsor have a lot of experience with KK-Psi and they know what to expect and what doesn't fly. So it's good to have them as an extra bit of guidance before submitting anything to headquarters. And like I said, sometimes if you work hard enough and you get a good enough relationship going with the staff at your band program, sometimes they'll show up to recruitment events, which like, it gives you a very safe feeling to know, like, I'm at this event and so is the assistant director.
Right.
Like, I must be doing something right. And so very affirming, helps to show the trust between chapters.
Great, thanks. Morgan?
Yeah, I really have to just echo a lot of what was already said. Last year, we actually welcomed a new director of bands during university, so I got to induct him through the process to become an honorary brother. And that was a really good way for him to immediately come in and have a connection with us. And now, being able to work with him and talk through chapters things with him and, again, share that membership education calendar with your DOB and talking through recruitment events. It's great because he kind of has that inside perspective on how Kappa Kappa Psi works, and just really keeping them in the loop is probably the most important thing that we've really learned as a chapter is just key to making it successful, because when they know what's going on, they're just really able to support us.
Yeah, that's great. And I will make that note. If your sponsor or director of bands is not honorary, you should do that. And Noah.
So I really just agree with like what both Ari and Morgan have said of just like keeping them in the loop, keeping them invested, keeping them involved. I know something that like my chapter does is that as soon as as soon as the new e-board is elected, the president, VPM, and sponsor have like a monthly meeting just to check in on like plans, and then it turns into bi-weekly once like recruitment starts and once the road to wisdom starts. And so I think, being able to have like this little subcommittee of just, having them be a sounding board, being advisors, I think that also adds another like layer of like involvement to it, because it's not only like being like, oh, does everything on paper look good, but it's also being able to have like these really productive conversations around why we're having this event or what's going on with specific P&Ms, MCs, brothers, as well as talking about other stuff, like pairings for big and littles and seeing how that's going or what the actual planning process looks like for that and being able to talk through that. And I think it brings a lot of like comfort to you as the VPM to make sure that like, you've got all your ducks in a row. But I think also it just kind of builds upon that trust that Ari mentioned as well, of just, having those individual conversations that are really in depth too.
That's great. Thank you very much. All right, so our last official question is a little bit of a plug for the Strive for Five initiative. I hope that if you are seeing this and watching this, that you have familiarized yourself with that initiative. We will click through it in a minute just so that you know. But for now, the question is, has your chapter utilized the resources on the Strive for Five page? How would you encourage chapters to incorporate the 5 pillars into their recruitment process? And we will start with Morgan.
All right, so I feel like I've really used the tools. My chapters really use the tools. I feel like I looked at the talking points document so much. It's like, it's all up here. But it's a really great resource, I feel like, to get your chapter on the same page, to talk to potential membership candidates. Especially, it's a great guide for any brothers who are on the recruiting side for the first time, to really kind of have that guide about, what we talk about and what keeps us on track there. But with the recruitment process, this is something my chapter has been really working on transitioning to more, but hosting recruitment events for each pillar. And I feel like the activity bank in there was really helpful to kind of like get ideas on how to do that. Because I know myself at first, and I think some other people, they have no idea how to like really incorporate something like service into a recruitment event. That was something I really struggled with for a while, because I didn't know how to make it fun that some people wanted to show up to. But really seeing what other people were doing kind of gave me inspiration. And I just think all the tools are just a really good way that if there's something that you're just not quite sure about and you don't know who to go to, but you're not sure who to reach out to. I mean, of course, there's plenty of people to reach out to that are going to help you, but just having that document on hand is really helpful.
That's great. Next, Noah.
Yeah, so I think my chapter, I remember when Strive for Five was like put out to like the fraternity, and we saw the words like passive versus active recruitment, because that was language that like my chapter had used. So we were just like, oh yay, we're on the same page. But so that was something like we really like try to embody like Strive for Five, and I think it is like a great guideline for first time recruiting brothers, as well as for the chapter as well as for brothers who have like been doing this for a couple years and are just, kind of going with the flow of things. But I think, having this resource here with like new perspectives can kind of add like help you regain some more of that passion, as well as kind of change your approach. Especially like for chapters who have really like successful like recruitment events, recruitment timelines. And I think it's also a great resource if you're trying to kind of mix up that timeline a little bit. Maybe like you're doing like the same events so many years in a row, and they're really fun and they're really successful. But maybe you just like pull something different, test it out, and see if it would be good to like incorporate for future years. Or if it doesn't work out, then at least you tried. So I think Strive for Five adds a lot of like cushion for like an encouragement for just trying new things and being innovative within your chapter.
Yeah, I think it works well for chapters who feel like they can hone their recruitment process, or like yours, where you're like, oh, we're doing a lot of these things, so we feel good about that. So it's good. And Ari, I know that Strive for Five was kind of after your time a little bit, but anything about that resource and how people can incorporate the pillars?
Yeah, so I was gonna say, back in my day, we did not have these sorts of resources. So I am very thankful that y'all have them, because it is so important to have that guidance. Sometimes it can be a little confusing and isolating to be coming up with ideas in a black hole. So I think that a big thing about integrating the pillars into recruitment is just that there should be a realistic representation of what the work looks like within the process. Otherwise, you're going to find people that are not going to do the work when it's time to. So a great example of this that I've been giving out recently is like, you could have an event where it's like, we're going to have like nachos, and then we're going to set up the band hall for rehearsal. This is what we do. This is our main purpose, is to be servant leaders. And the food helps because it brings people in, but then they realize, oh, I'm having a great time helping people out with these people that I enjoy hanging out with. It's so important to actually bring that into the process, even though you think, oh, it sounds boring. If you think it sounds boring, slap like a party sub on the table, watch people show up, it'll be fine. And then just in regards to the set of resources, it is huge to have those as references. I've already been sharing them out with people during my time as CFR, because it is so important to share our knowledge with each other, that we have almost we have over a century of experience as a fraternity, and that's something we should really lean into. We should go to each other for resources, go to each other for help. And that's something that Mason and I have been working on a lot this summer, and we'll bring up here in just a bit.
That's great. Thanks so much. So those are all of the formalized questions. Thank you all for your thoughts and comments and suggestions. That's extremely helpful. Right now, I'm going to point everyone to the Strive for Five page. It's kkpsi.org/membership/recruitment, kkpsi.org/membership/recruitment. Mia, at the moment, I'm not able to share my screen, I think because you're the host. So if you're able to share that link in the Facebook live stream, that would be helpful. And then also, we do have a Google Drive full of chapter resources that the CFRs have been diligently working on. And so you can find that at tinyurl.com/kkpsi resources. And Mia's going to put that in the chat as well so that you can have that link. And you can also find it on a link tree, linktr.ee/kkpsi-cfr. So all of those links are going to be in the live stream chat for you, and we will make those available. So as we are ending things here, does anyone have any final thoughts or suggestions, anything we didn't talk about, just to encourage folks as they get on their membership recruitment journey for this year?
I'm happy to say a few words if that's all right. I think at the end of the day, a lot of the reason why I had a lot of success as VPR was because I made it very clear that I love KKPSI. I love this brotherhood. I love this community. I love what it has done for me and for others. And if you are genuine and you put love into the process, you will get love out, and you will get the people that you are looking for. And that goes for not just people who do apply or are chosen and do accept, but also for those who might decline for whatever reason. Something that I always did for people who did decline their bids was thank them for going through the process anyways, because it's still time and effort spent on us, and just offering like support, like we loved working with you, and if you ever wanted to try again, we would love to see you back. Things like that. Because again, you just never know what people are going through. It's cool to be kind to others. And if they reconsider again that next year, they might actually accept the bid this time. Things to think about. Being kind to others and being genuine about your intentions as you go through the process. Best of luck, y'all.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
Yeah. I think something that I've been thinking about a lot throughout this conversation is just also kind of, keeping up with like your chapter wellness as well. Just making sure that your chapter is enjoying the recruitment process. Because, a lot of like love and a lot of labor can go as like VPM or VPR into like planning this and, making up all these events. But if your chapter's not fully invested in it, then you're not going to be seeing through your vision that you want. And I always something funny I always said is that it takes a village for like recruitment or for PNMs or for MCs, and it's really true because if you don't have the backing of your chapter behind you to try to get these new members in, you won't be as successful or get the numbers you want. So I think making sure when you're planning, making sure like these events are like, would this be something that we would do as just a chapter? Is this something that matches like our chapter values, our traditions, the personalities within our chapter? And I think that's just another like great way to just stay authentic to yourselves as brothers, as people, as a chapter, what have you. So I say just make sure that you're enjoying the process too. Recruitment can be really stressful and can be really like fast paced and overwhelming, but make sure that you're still enjoying it throughout that process as well.
That's great. Morgan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just a couple quick things that I feel like we already talked about, feed off of what works best for your chapter, but also don't be afraid to try anything new. Definitely did a lot of that. You find what works, you find what doesn't work. Something else is just personal invitations really go a long way. I really like now talking with brothers of the chapter, I have people say, so-and-so didn't invite me to that event, I would have never went. Whether it's a personal conversation or an email that's addressed just to that person, it really makes them feel welcome. And just really use your resources, and whether you're a VPM or a VPR or you're on a recruitment or membership committee, like you can really do it if you put the time and effort in, and if you use your resources, you use the support around you, you can do it. I would have never thought last year as a VPM that I would double our chapter size from 7 to 14, but it happened, and it's because I really leaned on my people. They, had to force me to delegate because I feel always so bad about giving them work. But just the support of everyone and, everyone in the chapter making those potential new members feel welcome really like made that happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's the end of our chat for this evening. Thank you so much to all of our guests, Ari, Morgan, and Noah. I really appreciated having you here. Also to Mia for being our support on the back end. But keep an eye out for our next VPSA chat that's going to be in September. We're going to be talking about service. And if you're interested in being a guest on that, there was an interest form that went out in President Coe's August newsletter. So fill out that form, and I would be so happy to have you join me for the chat in September. We're looking for all kinds of different perspectives, small chapters, big chapters, old chapters, new chapters, anybody at all. So please submit that form if you're interested. And if you would like to contact me, I'm available. It's just my name, arupa@kksci.org. Please feel free to send me a note. And please check out the Strive for 5 page on the KKSci website and our new Google Drive with those chapter resources. Let us know if you have any thoughts or questions, but thanks for being here. Goodbye.